Early Monday, traffic hummed along 3rd Mainland Bridge as rust-patched Danfo buses jostled beside glossy SUVs. Russell Franklin squeezed between them on his old Corolla, drumming the steering wheel and muttering his mantra, "Someday, they'll queue for my brand." That evening, in their cramped 2-bedroom flat in Sur-Île, he spread hand-drawn wireframes across the dining table. Picture an app that pairs idle bikes with people who need packages moved. Real-time, cashless, no ojolo bargaining, he told his wife, eyes sparkling. Grace Matthew Franklin listened, chin cupped in her palm. Like ride-hailing, but for parcels? Exactly. Lagos moves goods every second. Swift Drop could own that flow. She traced the sketched logo, a red arrow shooting forward. We'll need capital. I've emailed 40 investors. No bites. Grace inhaled. She thought of her father, Evelyn Matthew, the man who read balance sheets like weather reports and trusted no dreamer without collateral. 2 nights later, they sat in Evelyn's Ikoyi living room, sunlight bouncing off marble floors. Lydia played chess with Isabel under a crystal chandelier while the adults talked. "Dad, we need a small loan," Grace began. Evelyn eyed Russell over rimless glasses. "How small?" 20 million naira, Russell said, voice steady. Evelyn's laugh was soft but sharp. "I built Matthew Holdings brick by brick. I won't watch you gamble my pension on a web sketch." Grace squeezed Russell's hand. "Dad, he has numbers. Lagos records 100,000 informal deliveries a day. If Swift Drop secures just 5%. Grace, love can cloud judgment," Evelyn warned. Russell swallowed. "Sir, give me 6 months. Interest at 10%. If I default, I'll sign over all shares." Evelyn leaned back. "You're betting your entire dream?" "Yes, sir." The old man studied him. "Finally, sign tomorrow. Funds release Friday." 6 months later, motorcycle couriers in bright red jackets weaved through Lekki's morning rush, each bearing the Swift Drop arrow. Russell stood at a co-working roof deck, investors orbiting like bees. "We just hit 100,000 deliveries this month," he announced, voice amplified by the lagoon breeze. Cameras clicked. An online blog titled him Lagos Logistics Prince. Grace arrived with jollof in a cooler. Staff cheered her like family. She hugged programmers, learning their names. When reporters thrust mics at her, she smiled shyly. "I'm proud, but we're still serving everyday people. That's the real win." By December, Swift Drop Series A closed at $5 million. The Franklins moved into a white-walled mansion in Banana Island. Infinity pool reflecting neon skies, Italian marble steps that made Lydia giggle. "It's like stepping on ice." Isabel raced through echoing halls yelling, "Hide and seek." Russell's wardrobe changed first. Designer suits, gold cufflinks engraved with RF. At the Christmas launch party, he popped champagne, splashing interns. Grace whispered, "Easy, love, the staff are drenched." He laughed too loud. Let them feel the bubbles of success. Grace noticed board documents piling up unread on his desk, while Instagram stories captured him at rooftop bars with tech influencers. One night, she found him scrolling comments. Hashtag Tech Rockstar. Hashtag Niger Unicorn. Hashtag Forbes Watch. He grinned. "Babe, someone tagged me Nigeria's Elon Musk." She nudged Lydia's homework aside. "Russell, tomorrow is Isabel's school recital." He waved. "Send the driver. I've got an Ebony Life interview." Grace's smile thinned. "Your daughter rehearsed Silent Night for weeks. I'll stream it." He returned to his phone. Blue light glowed on a face already half turned away. Sunday lunch under their mango tree felt different. Evelyn visited, suit immaculate despite the heat. He watched Russell tip pool attendants with crisp notes, then leaned back while an assistant refilled his glass. Evelyn murmured to Grace, "Success should polish character, not corrode it." Grace stirred her rice slowly. "He's just excited. It'll settle." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Or spiral. That night, Grace walked into Russell's new home office. A glittering wristwatch lay on the table, easily the size of their first rent. "Another purchase?" "Limited edition," he said, not looking up from a WhatsApp chat labeled VIP Lounge. She sat opposite. Remember when we rationed fuel so you could meet dispatch riders? That hunger kept us grounded. He sighed. Grace, we're flying now. Different altitude, different rules. She touched his hand. Promise me the altitude won't steal your heart. He gently pulled away, eyes back on the screen. Trust me. She left quietly, passing a mirror in the hall. The reflection showed marble walls and chandeliers, but her face looked older, questions dancing behind her calm eyes. A week later, Lydia slipped into the kitchen. Mom, Dad missed school assembly again. Grace knelt. He's busy. Lydia's small brow furrowed. He used to call me chief strategist. Now he just nods. Grace hugged her. We'll remind him what matters. But Russell was already at Skybar, clinking glasses with investors and a striking woman in a red gown. Clara Monroe. Cameras flashed. Headlines the next morning read, Swift Drop CEO spotted with mystery beauty. Grace held the newspaper, heartbeat drumming. Up in Russell's office, champagne bottles lined the shelf like trophies. She whispered into the empty air, altitude is thinning the oxygen. Outside, Lagos roared on. Bright billboards, vendor horns, sea of ambition. Swift drop vans sped down Ozumba Mbadu, symbols of a dream fulfilled. Inside the mansion, however, tiny cracks began to snake across marble floors neither Lydia nor Isabel could yet see, but Grace felt each one beneath her bare feet. Paranoia. Wind rattled the royal blue curtains of Russell's home office while he studied a grainy phone picture. Grace laughing beside a male colleague outside a cafe. The man was handing her a stapled file, but Russell's chest still tightened. He jabbed a button on his intercom. Bode, call TechSecure. I want full house surveillance, kitchen, hallways, even the driver's quarters. Grace entered, carrying a tray of Acura for dinner. Who needs surveillance? Security upgrade, he said too quickly. She frowned. The old system works. The city's changing. Better safe than sorry. He kissed her forehead, but his eyes slid back to the picture, pupils burning with doubt. Invisible eyes. By Friday, 4 small cameras blinked green above door frames. Russell followed the live feed on his tablet like a gamer chasing scores. Whenever Grace headed to the garden, he zoomed in, searching for hidden signals. There were none. One afternoon, he shadowed her to Lekki Mall. She met an old university friend in public view, yet Russell lurked 3 tables away behind a sports magazine. Grace spotted him eventually and walked over. Russell, are you spying on me? I was in neighborhood. She lowered her voice. Since when do CEOs have time for window shopping on a Tuesday? He shrugged. Routine check on our courier kiosk. Grace's brows knitted, but she let it go until the pattern repeated. Interrogations. Back home, he cornered her in their walk-in closet. Who was that man with the check blazer? Check blazer? She blinked. My project manager, G-Day. He helps organize the girls' charity bake sale. Why did he touch her elbow? Grace laughed gently. Because I almost spilled coffee. Russell, are you all right? My friends warned me. Rich wives wander. He paced. You don't pick my calls sometimes. Because I'm teaching at Lydia's school or bathing Isabel. She reached for his arm. I love you. He stood rigid. Just remember what happens to families broken by lies. Her smile faded. Is that a threat? A promise to protect what's mine. Clara's web. Protection was the last thing on his mind 3 nights later at Skylight Lounge. Neon fountains lit Clara Monroe's sequin dress as she leaned closer, her perfume an intoxicating mix of orchid and danger. Your wife doesn't appreciate the empire you built, Clara purred. Russell swirled aged cognac. She limits my vision. Says I'm flashy. Clara traced the rim of his glass. Flashy men move the world, baby. And the world moves for them. Camera flashes popped. Influencers posted instantly. Russell didn't care. Under Lagos's strobing skyline, he kissed her, thinking no one would connect the dots. An accidental expose. Saturday morning, Lydia padded into Grace's bedroom, giggling over her tablet. Mommy, look at Daddy's dance moves. On screen was a gossip blog. Swift Drop CEO and Mystery Lady set dance floor blaze. Isabel tried mimicking Clara's twirl, bumping into the nightstand. Grace's heartbeat slowed, then thundered. She took the tablet, studied Russell's hand on Clara's back, the timestamp, 2 nights ago, then calmly handed the device back. Girls, finish breakfast. Mommy needs to make a phone call. The decision. Later, in Evelyn Matthews' Okoye office, sunlight painted geometric patterns on the carpet. I need your lawyer, Grace said, voice steady. Evelyn looked at her long and hard. You've always fought for him. I fought for the man who once fixed our generator in the rain, not the one who plants cameras in my kitchen. He slid a business card across the desk. Adora Okoye, family law. Grace exhaled. I'm asking for half. For Lydia and Isabel's future. You're entitled to more, he said, softening. But ask only what keeps your dignity intact. She nodded, tears threatening but contained. Serving papers. On Tuesday, Russell strutted into Swift Drop HQ, only to meet a stern receptionist. A courier left documents for you, sir. He opened the envelope in his glass office. Headline: Petition for divorce followed by 20 pages detailing adultery, surveillance, and emotional harassment. At the end was Adeora's demand: 50% marital assets, full custody of Lydia and Isabel, residence in the Banana Island mansion until trial. Russell's chair clattered as he stood. Get my driver now. The confrontation. Grace sat in the sunlit foyer arranging lilies when he stormed in. You serve me papers? His voice shook the chandelier. She remained seated. I requested your attention politely for months. The court will do it formally. You dare accuse me of cheating? I dare state facts. Photos don't lie. He waved a dismissive hand. Clara is publicity optics, investor relations. Grace folded a lily stem. Optics were all over the internet, Russell. He stepped closer. You think you'll take my children? My money. Our children, she corrected. And our money, earned on a loan I secured. Russell's jaw clenched. Grace, you won't win. Judges favor powerful men. She finally looked up, eyes clear and strangely calm. Maybe years ago, but Nigeria is changing, and so am I. He scoffed, but the quiet certainty in her tone unsettled him. Collateral damage. Upstairs, Lydia hugged Isabel behind half-closed doors, listening. It's okay, she whispered. Mom's protecting us. Isabel sniffed. Will Daddy stop loving us? Lydia swallowed. Parents can love and still fight. We'll be okay. Downstairs, Russell lunged for the divorce papers, ripping them in half. Grace didn't flinch. You can tear photocopies, she said, rising. Originals are with the court. He grabbed her wrist. Come to dinner tonight. No lawyers, no threats. She freed herself. Dinner was my idea last week, remember? You chose Clara's rooftop. He staggered back as if slapped. Grace! Russell! She interrupted, voice soft but ironclad. I will not argue in front of the children again. You may call my lawyer. She walked toward the staircase. Halfway up, she paused. I believed in you before the world learned your name. Don't force me to forget why. Her footsteps faded. Russell sank onto the couch, rage and regret swirling like monsoon clouds above the lagoon. Lines drawn. That night he sat alone in the mansion's cinema room, surveillance feeds glowing across 16 screens. Grace was in the guest suite reading bedtime stories. In another window, Lydia brushed Isabel's hair. Russell realized the cameras he'd installed to guard his family now showed a family from which he was already excluded. His phone buzzed. Clara's selfie in a limousine. Miss you. He turned the device face down. A new feed window opened. Driveway gate. Evelyn's car pulled in. Russell stood, chest pounding. Evelyn rang once. Russell opened the door before the second chime. The older man's voice was low. Son, control your pride before it controls you. Russell's reply was a whisper. She wants half. She wants respect. Evelyn paused. And she'll get both. The gate clicked shut behind him, leaving Russell alone with echoing silence and the steady, unblinking eyes of his own security system. Grace's quiet resolve. In her temporary suite, Grace opened a new journal. Tonight, I drew my first unbreakable line, she wrote. Divorce is not defeat. It is demolition of lies so truth can breathe. Tomorrow, I'll tell the girls. She added a date and closed the book. Flipping off the lamp, she whispered a prayer for wisdom, then slipped beneath crisp sheets, hearing the distant hum of Victoria Island traffic. Still glamorous, still ruthless, but no longer principal in her story. The invitation. Rain clouds rolled over Victoria Island as Grace checked her phone. A text from Russell glowed on the screen. Russell, I found a place the girls will love. Penthouse view, safe neighborhood. Can we meet? Grace hesitated. The divorce battle was growing ugly, yet the promise of something for the girls tugged at her. She replied, 1 hour. Detective Darren Cole, now her quiet advisor, had warned her. Meet in public, always. But the message sounded almost humble. Against her better judgment, Grace agreed, hoping Russell finally wished to end the war. The penthouse. At dusk, she stepped from a private elevator into the unfinished sky suite atop Azure Crest, a new 40-story tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the lagoon, still silver under the fading light. Plastic sheets fluttered where workers had paused construction for the weekend. Russell stood near a small table set with 2 wine glasses. He wore the same designer suit from their wedding anniversary years before, a crimson tie replaced by a darker one. Grace, he greeted, voice low. Thank you for coming. She kept distance. Let's discuss quickly. Lydia has fever. I'm sorry to hear that. He poured red wine. This building, prime spot. I want to buy the penthouse, hold it in trust for the girls. No hidden clause. Grace crossed her arms. Why choose an uncompleted site? He gestured at the skyline. Fresh start needs fresh walls. The speech. Russell lifted his glass. I rehearsed this apology. He inhaled, eyes glistening. I let greed twist me. I hurt the only person who believed in me. Tonight, I'm not a CEO. I'm Russell, the man who once fixed the generator in the rain. Grace felt a sting behind her eyes. She did not touch the wine. Apology must come with action. Sign the custody agreement. End the spying. End Clara. I will, he said smoothly. But first, toast with me to forgiveness. He stretched the glass closer. Grace shook her head. I'm driving, and I don't trust drinks offered without witnesses. A shadow crossed his face, gone in a second. You think I'd poison you? I think I don't know you anymore, she answered. The edge. Music drifted from a Bluetooth speaker. Slow jazz, the same song from their first date. Russell walked toward the balcony, a wide platform with only a waist-high rail. Scaffoldings and green safety nets for workers drooped 1 floor below. Come, Grace. The view calms the soul. She followed, but kept space between them. The evening wind whipped her braids. Roofing lights blinked across distant towers. Russell sighed. Do you remember our Surler flat? We prayed for opportunities. We prayed for integrity too, she replied. His jaw tightened. You always judge me. No, I begged you to stop judging yourself by strangers' praise. He gripped the rail, knuckles white. I could still fix things. Then start by signing those papers, she said softly. Russell turned. Something cold flashed in his eyes. You and your father plan to chop my empire in half. That empire grew from a loan my father gave and sacrifices I made, she reminded him. Half is fair. He stepped closer. Grace took 1 step back, heels now near the ledge. Move away from the edge, Russell, she warned, voice steady. What? His smile was eerie. Afraid of heights? The push. In a single blur, Russell seized her shoulders and shoved. Grace gasped, arms flailing. The city dropped away, the world a roar of wind and crackling plastic. She expected hard concrete, but instead hit something springy. A green construction net sagged, caught her like a giant hammock, then bounced. White pain shot through her leg. Her head struck a steel bar. Darkness swam around the edges of her sight. Above, Russell's face appeared at the rail, horrified at first, then blank. He vanished. Rescue on the net. Madam, hold still, a voice shouted. Construction workers on the 39th floor dashed to the net, already rigged for facade painters. 2 men crawled over beams, cut the mesh carefully, and lowered Grace onto plywood. Blood trickled from her temple. She tried to speak, but only managed a whisper. My daughters. We called ambulance, a foreman assured, dialing emergency. Another worker aimed his phone upward, still recording. Arrival of the law. 15 minutes later, sirens wailed. Detective Darren Cole strode through the lobby, badge glinting. Paramedics wheeled Grace, semi-conscious, past him. She gripped Darren's sleeve. Russell pushed, she breathed. Darren nodded once. I'm here. Upstairs, Russell sat on the penthouse floor hugging himself. Wine glass shattered beside him. Two officers cuffed him gently. What happened? Darren asked. Russell's eyes were glassy. She jumped. I tried to stop her. Did she? I beg her not to. She's emotional, divorce stress. He looked away, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. Check the cameras. She climbed over. I will, Darren replied. And we'll check the workers' phones. Evidence speaks. Down in a temporary site office, 3 laborers replayed their shaky footage for police. The video showed Russell's shove in full clarity, captured between scaffold rods. Darren watched, jaw set. You're certain this hasn't been altered? Foreman nodded. Straight from phone, Olga. Darren copied the file, tagged the devices as evidence, and headed back up. He found Russell in the elevator lobby, wrist-bound, still muttering. Grace needs help. She tried before. Darren held out his tablet. Your wife didn't jump. He hit play. The shove looped twice. Russell's shoulders sagged. His mask cracked. She was ruining me, he whispered. Yet she's the one in surgery, Darren said. Mr. Franklin, you're under arrest for attempted murder. Hospital vigil. Lagos University Teaching Hospital. 1 a.m. machines beeped steadily. Grace lay pale, leg in a cast, stitches on her forehead. Evelyn Matthew sat at her bedside, prayer beads in hand. Lydia slept curled on a plastic chair. Isabel's tiny fingers interlocked with her mother's uninjured hand. Detective Darren entered quietly. She's stable, the doctor confirmed behind him. No spinal damage. Miraculous. Evelyn exhaled. Thank God for construction nets. Darren leaned toward Grace. Her eyes fluttered open. Russell's in custody, he said softly. Footage is secure. Rest will handle court. Grace's voice was a rasp. Life for my girls, not revenge. We'll make sure they're safe, Darren promised. Clara's exit. News broke by sunrise. Tech CEO arrested after wife's near-fatal fall. Clara Monroe deleted every picture with Russell. Posted a cryptic story. Some storms aren't worth dancing in. Investors froze swift drop shares. Employees whispered about jail time and shattered dreams. Russell's statement. At the station, Russell scribbled a confession, tears blurring ink. I lost control, he wrote. I thought if she disappeared, I'd keep everything. Darren read silently, then asked, was the apology real? Russell whispered, part of me meant it. Part of me was drowning. The law will sort truth from drowning, Darren said, closing the file. A new dawn. 3 days later, sunlight poured through hospital blinds. Grace's daughters climbed onto the bed carefully. Isabel kissed the bandage on her mother's head. Mommy, does it hurt? Only when I forget how brave nets can be. Grace smiled weakly. She saw Evelyn speaking with Ador outside. Custody papers nearly done. Detective Darren arrived with discharge updates. Grace thanked him. You believed me when I had no voice. He shook his head. You never lost your voice, Mrs. Franklin. Someone just tried to silence it. Grace squeezed her daughters. They failed. Outside, Lagos traffic thrummed. Unforgiving, restless, but somehow brighter. Grace closed her eyes, breathing in hope, already feeling the spark of something new. First night in holding. Mid-evening fluorescent lights buzzed in the detention wing of Ikoyi Federal High Security Center. Russell Franklin sat on a steel bench behind bar doors. Prison jumpsuit rumpled like a borrowed costume. His watch, phone, and dignity were all gone, traded for an inmate number printed in black. Sergeant Musa unlocked the hatch in the door. Your lawyer brought food, he grunted, sliding in a tray of cold jollof and 2 small bottles of water. Russell barely noticed. His mind replayed the push, the green net, the sirens. Each loop tightened around his chest. Across the corridor, 2 veteran inmates watched him through mesh screens. That new Oga thinks he's still on Forbes' list, one muttered. The other chuckled. By tomorrow he'll learn everyone here is equal. Same toilet, same rats. Headlines break. At dawn, Journalists flooded Lagos radio waves. Star FM /6:05 AM / Breaking news. Tech billionaire Russell Franklin arrested for attempted murder of his wife, Grace Franklin. Sources say the incident was caught on construction footage. Newspaper vendors stapled bold lines. Tech billionaire tries to kill wife after cheating scandal. Court hearing Monday. At SwiftDrop headquarters, staff gathered in tense clusters. Stella, the HR manager, rubbed her temples. Phones are exploding. Sponsors want statements. Couriers want salaries. Everyone wants refunds. Samuel, the CFO, sighed. When a plane loses its pilot mid-air, passengers panic. We must steady the wings. A call from the outside. Late morning, Sergeant Musa tapped Russell's cell bars. You have a monitor call. 5 minutes. In a single phone booth, Russell picked up the receiver. Static crackled. Hello. Hey, Russ. Clara Monroe's velvet voice oozed through, but something felt off. Too high-pitched, almost rehearsed. How did you get this number? He whispered. Does it matter? I just wanted to check on you. Russell clutched the cord. Clara, I need you. Call my investors. Tell them it wasn't my fault. Tell them Grace lied. On the other end came a small laugh. I don't think that story will fly, darling. Everyone saw the video. He swallowed hard. Then help me manage PR. You promised we'd rule Lagos together. Another voice entered the line, deep, male, amused. Babe, time's up. We're late for the studio. Russell froze. Who's that? Clara answered breezily. My fiancé, Kelechi. We're launching a reality show. Listen, Russell, I never planned for this avalanche. I hope prison isn't too rough. You said you loved me. Clara sighed the way people do when a party ends. I love the possibilities, jets, parties, your crypto wallet. Now sponsors think you're toxic. Clara, please. Goodbye, Russell. Click. Sergeant Musa stepped in. Back to your cell. Russell's hand fell from the receiver like a puppet's string had snapped. Shattered reflections. Inside his cell, Russell stared at the smeared mirror above the sink. He remembered the first day Grace cut his hair in their Surreal bathroom and joked, let's make you look like a CEO before you become one. He saw himself now. Undone stubble, hollow eyes, nothing like a CEO. A crumpled newspaper lay on the floor, tossed in by another inmate. Board of SwiftDrop suspends Franklin, initiates emergency restructure. He read it twice, hands shaking. The empire he'd built on ambition was crumbling faster than wet sand. This is rock bottom, he thought, but rock bottom had a trapdoor. Detectives visit. Detective Darren Cole arrived that afternoon. Guards opened the visitor room, where Russell sat behind plexiglass. Darren placed a folder on the table. For transparency, prosecution evidence, videos, testimonies, financials. Russell's voice was cracked. Grace put you up to this? No, Darren replied. The justice system did. Russell's lips quivered. Will I get bail? Attempted murder is non-bailable under current circumstances. Court might consider it later, but footage is damning. He leaned closer. Russell, you still have the right to make amends. Cooperate. Accept responsibility. Maybe the judge shows leniency. Russell pressed his forehead against the glass. What if I can't face it? Darren's eyes softened, but his tone stayed firm. Running from truth only makes the fall harder. Shame spreads. In Grace's hospital room, Lydia scrolled her tablet. Headlines screamed everywhere. Friend from school sent shocked emojis. Lydia whispered to her grandmother. Everyone knows now. They keep asking if Daddy's a monster. Evelyn hugged her. Your father made terrible choices. That doesn't erase the love he once had for you. But monsters are defined by what they do, not by gossip. Grace, still bandaged, listened in silence, tears creeping past her lashes. She whispered to Lydia, hate the sin, my love, not always the sinner. Yet part of her realized Russell's spiral might only deepen. The court corridor. Monday morning, first arraignment. Crowds swarmed the courthouse steps, some chanting justice for Grace, others snapping selfies. Russell shuffled in with shackles on his wrists, coat gone, wearing a faded prison uniform. Flashbulbs flickered like electric hail. Reporters shouted, Russell, why did you push your wife? Do you have anything to say to your daughters? He kept eyes downward. Inside the courtroom, the judge postponed full hearing to gather psychiatric evaluation. Russell's lawyer, Barrister Agui, whispered, "We'll argue diminished capacity, perhaps secure a hospital wing." Russell nodded numbly, hearing nothing but Clara's goodbye, Russell echoing in his skull. Returned to the cell. That night, he lay on a narrow bunk, eyes open. Overhead, fluorescent light buzzed. Inmates snored or cursed behind concrete walls. Russell pressed his palms to his ears. The sound of Grace's scream at the push came back, louder than the buzzing. He rolled onto his side and saw a shadowy figure. Inmate Patrick, watching from the barred doorway. Patrick spoke softly. "Heard you used to own bikes delivering phones. Now phones deliver your shame." Russell said nothing. Patrick shrugged. "I pushed my wife too, 7 years ago. Prison strips you till only guilt remains." Russell turned away, but the sentence branded his mind. Prison strips you till only guilt remains. The breaking point. Early Tuesday, a guard handed Russell a stack of documents, divorce settlement revisions, and a restraining order. At the bottom, a note from Grace read, "I pray you find peace someday. No anger, no threats, just sorrow and distance." Russell's throat tightened. He ripped the packet in half, pieces fluttering like dead leaves. A guard shouted, "Pick that up." Russell did, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Suddenly, he slammed them against the wall until knuckles bled. Guards restrained him, shouted for medical. In the infirmary, he stared at bandaged hands. The nurse offered mild sedatives. He refused. Midnight silence. After roll call, Russell's unit settled. Lights dimmed, but never turned fully off. He sat on the bunk, back against the wall, knees drawn up. In the corner of the ceiling, a vent released a slow hiss of recycled air. He thought of Clara dancing with Kalechi on Instagram Live, a clip he glimpsed on another inmate's contraband phone. Clara laughing, champagne spraying. He thought of Grace lying in a hospital bed, Lydia brushing Isabel's hair. He thought of headlines etched forever onto the internet. No apology big enough to erase them. An unminnable plate shattered. Final act. Around 2:45 a.m., Sergeant Musa logged his round. When he reached Russell's cell, he paused. No movement inside. Quiet was usual at this hour, but something felt wrong. He shined his torch. Russell was on his knees, a sheet twisted into a rope tied to the window grill. Face tilted skyward, eyes half open, but seeing nothing. Musa radioed frantically, code red. Cell block C, inmate down. Guards rushed. They cut the fabric, laid Russell on the floor, attempted CPR. Pulse absent. A medic arrived, shook his head. Time of death, 2:58 a.m. News erupts. By dawn, Lagos woke to another wave of headlines. Disgraced tech mogul Russell Franklin dies by suicide in custody. Social media exploded. Some posts mournful, others scathing. At Nigepulse, from penthouse to prison, a lesson in unchecked ambition. R.I.P. At Tech Africa blog, Swift Drop shares collapse further as founder found dead in cell. Board releases statement urging calm. Radio host debated mental health. TV panels discuss toxic masculinity, greed, and the justice system. Grace learns the news. Hospital corridor, 8:30 a.m. Evelyn stepped in with a newspaper under his arm, face pallid. Grace saw and knew. "What happened?" she whispered. "He's gone." Her breath caught. For a moment, the heart monitor blinked erratically. The nurse hurried, but Grace raised a calming palm. Isabel tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, where is Daddy?" Grace's lips quivered. "Daddy went to heaven, sweetheart." Tears spilled despite her effort to stay strong. Lydia hugged her mother. The three stayed locked in silent storm. Later, Grace whispered to Evelyn, "He chose a door none of us can open." Evelyn nodded, eyes wet. "We can only pray peace meets him on the other side." Detective's reflection. Detective Darren Cole stood outside the morgue that afternoon. Reporters circled like gulls. The coroner confirmed suicide. Darren signed final papers. His partner, Sergeant Aisha, asked, "You look heavy." "Justice sometimes ends without winners," he muttered. I saw two bright people lose themselves, one to pride, one to pain. Aisha placed a hand on his shoulder. Our job is to shine light, not prevent every darkness. National conversation. For weeks, talk shows dissected Russell's downfall. Mental health advocates pushed for better counseling in correctional facilities. Tech leaders warned entrepreneurs about bubble ego. Churches preached on the wages of betrayal. A viral tweet by writer Yuzo Adigwe summed it up. Success isn't the height you reach, but the weight your soul can carry up there. The funeral without a family. A small service was held at a private cemetery. Only Russell's estranged cousin attended, along with two Swift Drop employees who felt obligated. No wife, no daughters. The pastor recited Psalm 23. Rain began to fall, drumming softly on the casket lid. As the coffin descended, the cousin whispered, "I wish you'd asked for help sooner." The sound of wet soil hitting wood was the final note. Swift Drop's post-Russell era. 3 months later, Swift Drop appointed an interim CEO from a global firm. They rebranded the red arrow logo to soft blue, symbolizing new beginnings. Investors trickled back, cautious but curious. Employees held a moment of silence, not for Russell's crimes, but for the early days when dreams were pure. Grace at his grave. One quiet evening, long after crowds forgot, Grace visited Russell's grave. She wore a simple Ankara dress, walking stick under her arm, legs still healing. She placed white lilies on the fresh soil. Lydia and Isabel stood behind her, holding hands. Grace spoke softly, almost to herself, "Russell, I forgive you, not because you asked, but because bitterness is its own cell, and I won't live there." The wind rustled leaves overhead. Lydia whispered, "Goodbye, Daddy." Isabel echoed, "Bye-bye." They turned away, leaving the stone alone beneath a gray sky, and walked toward a future none of them had planned, but all of them would shape together. 4 months after the trial, Lagos dawn glimmered through hospital glass as Grace took her first unassisted step. The physiotherapist beamed. "You're stronger than most athletes, ma'am." Grace smiled, steadying herself. Strength is a choice. Healing in the spotlight. When journalists learned she could walk again, interview requests flooded in. On Morning Pulse TV, the host leaned forward. "Viewers call you the woman who fell and rose. What keeps you hopeful?" Grace spoke plainly. "I survived because strangers caught me and family loved me. I want every trapped woman to feel that net." Clips went viral. Hashtags #Fall and Rise and hashtag Grace Matthew Franklin trended for weeks. Donations poured from students, CEOs, and even market traders in Balagan. Birth of a foundation. At an airy co-working space in Yaba, Grace addressed 10 volunteers. Lydia, now 11, managed the projector. Isabel handed out juice boxes. Grace outlined the mission. "We will give legal aid, emergency housing, and counseling to women facing abuse. No questions, no judgment." An eager graduate asked, "Why call it the Fall and Rise Project?" Grace glanced at her leg brace, then back at the room. "Because falling is never the end, and rising is easier when someone offers a hand." Evelyn stood at the doorway, gray hair trimmed neat. He clapped first, eyes moist. "Your courage shames my earlier doubts, daughter. Matthew Holdings will match every naira you raise." Grace walked over and hugged him. "Thank you, Dad. The girls and I need your wisdom. I'm here, board meetings, bake sales, whatever," he promised with a chuckle. New beginnings. By years in, the foundation opened a hotline, rescued 73 women, and secured brand new apartments for 12 families. Lydia designed a colorful logo, a bird breaking free. Isabel recorded a jingle for radio. One quiet Saturday, they moved from the mansion full of memories into a smaller loft overlooking Tafwa Balewa Square. Grace arranged second-hand furniture, humming. Lydia asked, "Do you miss the marble floors?" "Mosaic or marble, it's love that makes a home," Grace replied, kissing her forehead. Final shot. Twilight painted the skyline purple as Grace stepped onto the loft's narrow balcony. She gripped the cool rail, not in fear, but in ownership of her life. Far below, traffic lights blinked like distant stars. Above, the city buzzed with possibility. Grace inhaled, stood tall, and whispered, "I'm still here." The camera widened, showing a woman unbroken, her daughters laughing behind the curtain, and Legos shining before them. Proof that even from the cruelest drop, a brighter rise can begin.